All right, speaking of fake black accents, she just dropped a new one after speaking to the Black Caucus.
Hello to all my divine nine brothers and sisters. And my soror. And to all my HBCU brothers and sisters.
Yeah. You think someone would maybe have told her about the voice and how it doesn't really come across as authentic, and maybe, you know, don't lean into your own, don't do so many bits?
Yeah, she's graduated. Now she's doing the voice and then cackling in between the voice. Brothers and sisters? It's like an undercover brother. She's out of a movie or something.
All right, Jim Jam, we're live.
Welcome back. We have special guests with us. Dane Whittington is with us. He's a lead researcher and administrator for the website geoengineeringwatch.org and executive producer of the groundbreaking climate engineering documentary, The Dimming. He has a background in solar energy and has devoted the last 20 years of his life to researching covert global climate engineering operations and the effort to expose and halt them. So welcome back to the show, Dane. And the reason why I have you on, Dane, is because we had big news yesterday from Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin is the EPA administrator in the Trump administration. The Trump EPA is committed to total transparency, he tweeted out. I tasked my team at the EPA to compile everything we know about contrails and geoengineering to release to you now publicly. I want you to know everything. Everything's in all caps. I want you to know everything I know about these topics, and without any exception. Well, that's pretty interesting. Well, here's his video. Let's listen to it.
Concerned Americans have urgent and important questions about geoengineering and contrails. The American public deserves and expects honesty and transparency from their government when seeking answers. But for years, people who asked questions in good faith were dismissed, even vilified by the media and their own government. That era is over. The Trump EPA is committed to total transparency. As a result, I tasked my team at EPA to compile a list of everything we know about contrails and geoengineering for the purpose of releasing it to you now publicly. In other words, I want you to know everything I know about these topics and without any exception. Instead of simply dismissing these questions and concerns as baseless conspiracies, we're meeting them head on. We did the legwork, looked at the science, consulted agency experts, and pulled in relevant outside information to put these online resources together. Everything we know about contrails to solar geoengineering will be in there. That means anyone who reads through this information will know as much about these topics as I do as EPA administrator. As anyone who's ever looked up to the streaks in the sky and asked, what the heck is going on? We're seeing headlines about private actors and even governments looking to blot out the sun in the name of stopping global warming. We've endeavored to answer all of your questions at the links on your screen. In fact, EPA shares many of the same concerns when it comes to potential threats to human health and the environment, especially from solar geoengineering activities. The enthusiasm for experiments that would pump pollutants into the high atmosphere has set off alarm bells here at the Trump EPA.
Oh, really?
Prior to now, EPA has never been this proactive to raise awareness about concerns with geoengineering and to stop this activity from being scaled up. This is what it looks like when government actually listens to the will of the people and doesn't try to squash it. You can always trust this administration and this EPA to take your concerns seriously, answer your questions honestly, and carry out the will of voters with integrity.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure that's what they mean when they call a limited hangout. So he's pretending
contrails. He's saying contrails, so not chemtrails. So contrails, the thing that they said chemtrails are.
Exactly right, Kurt. That's exactly right. So he's giving lip service to people who have serious questions, like we do here, like Dane does, and actually have evidence that the contrails aren't contrails, but that they're chemtrails. So if you go, I just want to I'll give you a real. This is my Reader's Digest condensed version of what is in that report. If you go, Justin Hart put it together. He said, "Spoiler alert: there's no there. Contrails. This is what they say about contrails at the report." Contrails are a normal effect of jet aircraft operations and have been since its earliest days of air travel. If you are seeing a lot of contrails in your area, it is because there are a lot of jet aircraft flying overhead. And chemtrails, the federal government is not aware of there ever being a contrail intentionally formed over the United States for the purpose of geoengineering or weather modification. They've never.
It's not a contrail. They're telling you the truth. It's not a contrail.
It's not a contrail.
They do this legalese crap. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So when you see this, he's saying this is all just naturally occurring because of jet travel, and you must be crazy. And I love this. If you think this is normal, you're probably vaxxed and boosted. So
you don't think they put pentagrams in the sky naturally?
Right. So Dane, well, let me just read this one last thing, and I'll bring it to you, Dane. The EPA is not aware of any scientific evidence that supports any claim that any nefarious activities are taking place. HARP is not a classified program, and its environmental impact study can be viewed by the public. So that's what. So Dane, I'm sure you read this. I'm sure you saw that. What is your response to this, Dane?
Well, this whole thing is absolutely ludicrous. That everybody's going to pretend that climate engineering isn't raging in our skies. And from that little bit from Lee Zeldin, he's not much of an actor, is he? And you need a big set of boots to wade through what he just spewed out. And what was his first attempt to address this issue? Going back a couple months, he tried this. He tried to point the finger at two IT actors from Silicon Valley that launched a few balloons. They launched 140 balloons. Total PR stunt, virtually meaningless, 10 grams of SO2 tied to each balloon. And Zeldin tried to point at the threat we face for our skies. That belly flopped completely. This is his latest attempt, no better. The public is waking up fast, and what happened in Texas is exactly what geoengineeringwatch.org has tried to warn about for a decade and a half, and that's the tip of the iceberg, and much more is coming.
Yeah, it's much worse than that. You ever see the great governor where I live in Texas when they asked him about, hey, did that guy with the mullet maybe start this with his stupid weather toy? And the governor goes, that's a loser question. I thought it was on par with Trump saying, why are you bringing up Epstein? Level, disconnect. It was amazing.
So I agree. Saw it all. And that kid you're talking about, Augustus Dorico, there's something radically wrong with him, who he is, who he's connected to. We have pictures of him nuzzled up to Bill Clinton. He's part of the Peter Thiel Foundation of training youth, whatever the hell
creepy
it is.
Rosicrucians? Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So we're gonna.
I mean, that guy showed up at every state legislative meeting to try to pretend climate engineering wasn't happening. No one would do that. But his little single-engine propeller-driven airplanes, which might drop 5 or 10 pounds in a flight, is going to change the world, right? Really? When a single military tanker can carry 100 tons in one payload? Yeah. Again, this is a circus of stupidity at this point. Climate engineering is raging in our skies. We're all going to pay the price. It doesn't stop. I have a wildfire in my backyard, so it's not just deluge. Climate engineering is setting the stage for these epic firestorms. And now we have U.S. Forest Service, another governmental agency. I was told this week by California state officials, U.S. Forest Service not only refused to let their firefighters put this out, they refused to let Cal Fire put it out until it's massive and uncontrollable. What's going on here? So
there's a lot more nefarious stuff happening than I think we could even wrap our brain around.
Yes.
That's what I just like with COVID. People, it's the lie is so enormous that their brain can't wrap, and still to this day, most people I know can't wrap their brains around it, so they just dismiss it, and they'll say things like, "Oh no, that COVID's over. That's over," even though it takes 10 years to figure out what the side effects are from a new vaccine, and we're only 4 years in, so we're not even halfway through COVID and the experimental medical treatment called COVID-19 vaccine that we were mandated to take. We don't even know what the outcomes of that is. So the same thing here. I don't think people can really wrap their brain around. So because Dane, they've made people who would look up in the sky. If you looked up in the sky and you saw stuff like this, and you had a question about it, they would call you crazy. You're a chemtrail crazy person. So what do you make of the timing of this? What do you make of the EPA coming out pretending to be on the side of people like you and me and Kurt who have questions about stuff like this? What do you think this is all for? And what do you make of it?
They're doing damage control because the masses are waking up. Our phone is ringing off the hook. And let's talk about crazy, Jimmy. Here's crazy. The entire global climate science community and every government around the world is saying emphatically that they need to put jets in the sky to spray light scattering particles to slow down the warming of the planet. And yeah, it would look exactly like what we see. Yes, it would disrupt the hydrological cycle, exactly like what's happened. And yet they tell us that we're not seeing what we're seeing. Nothing to see here. Move along. It's absolutely ludicrous. We have film footage of these aircraft at altitude, nozzles visible, turning dispersions on and off. They turn their transponders off. We can't track them. Only the military can do that. The larger tankers, we can't track. Their transponders are turned off. And we're testing precipitation, and it's packed with climate engineering, highly toxic elements. This is a circus of stupidity at this point, Jimmy, and we need the population. Thank you for your voice, you and Kurt. You guys have a very effective way of delivering the message. And we are definitely late in the game, but Zeldin is doing damage control, doing a pitiful job as usual, just like the Epstein disappearing files. This is going to blow up in his face, just like him pointing at the two clowns from Silicon Valley.
And so can you tell me a little bit about what is HARP, HAARP, and why did they try to discourage anybody from thinking there's something going on with HARP?
But there's a lot going on with HARP, and HARP is a weapon of mass destruction, period. High Active Auroral Research Program. That's what the acronym stands for. But that acronym isn't meant to mean anything to anybody. It's meant to be deceptive, and it is. HARP is a ground-based ionosphere heater. It can transmit 3.6 million watts of power into the electrically charged ionosphere, causing an electrical chain reaction. These are patented processes. The science is not disputed. As it superheats the atmosphere, it causes it to expand up and down. The downward push in the atmosphere creates a high-pressure dome, a term we see all the time now with meteorologists. And in the northern hemisphere, the upper-level wind currents spin clockwise around that high-pressure heat dome, and they can steer the jet stream with that. The original patent holder acknowledged that. A Discovery Channel documentary called Owning the Weather acknowledged that. And now they pretend it's some benign research facility. It's a weapon of mass destruction. And there's another ionosphere heater, a big one, in Antarctica, Jimmy.
Yeah. Is it Ice Cube too?
There you go.
So Ice Cube's a big HARP like I thought.
What is
my
it?
friend Eric Hecker's the guy that worked at Raytheon there.
Hecker knows. Yes, he knows. Correct. And again, so what do we have with the facility in Antarctica? During a U.S. presidential election, we had John Kerry, who was part of that election, in Antarctica. During the election, he flies back to Christchurch.
Yes.
He flies back to Christchurch, New Zealand, still during the election. New Zealand was not towing the line for the power structure. Kerry pulls all the U.S. diplomats out of New Zealand about 4 hours before the massive quake hits New Zealand. What a coincidence, even though they were scheduled for meetings. Same thing happened we had Haiti. We've had the Turkey earthquakes. Now, again, this is
Syria had two.
spoke about this. This is a tectonic weapon. So when you bounce a microwave signal off the now reflective atmosphere down into seismically sensitive strata and you superheat it, something's going to give. So to add credence to everything I just stated, Kurt and Jimmy, your listeners can search Japanese earthquake, atmospheric heating, MIT. Japanese earthquake, ionosphere heating, MIT. They acknowledged 3 days of atmospheric heating directly above the epicenter. They couldn't explain. That's signature HARP. It's not a benign research facility.
I dismissed a lot of people that told me this stuff a while ago.
Me
it's so
too.
preposterous. I didn't know that we had a treaty in 1975 to not use weather weapons, which means they had those back then or wouldn't have a treaty. And you
What's the caveat to that treaty? Yes, you're right. The NMOD treaties. And they passed those treaties because Project Popeye was so effective in Vietnam at controlling precipitation. How much further have they come now? But the NMOD treaties did not forbid, Kurt, they did not forbid a country doing whatever they want with weather, anything over their own population. No restriction there. Massive caveat.
How did I know? Jesus Christ. Yeah, also, I read the Mind War document from 2006 where they were talking how they can use this in the ionosphere to affect your moods. It was Mind War. It's how you make the enemy feel you've already won, before the war even starts. And I don't think they were using that on other countries because we didn't win them wars. I think they used it here.
However much they can tailor that is debatable, but the fact that we're an electrical organism, and if you bombard that organism with frequencies that disrupt that organism, that causes a problem, period. So again, and back to the frequency and communication transmissions as well, on top of this, we see the cell towers, they're being provided a service entrance that gives that 10 times more power than it needs for communication. What's that power being used for? Those towers are being used as part of the frequency transmission manipulations of the electrically conductive particles. So now let's go back to Texas. What happened in Texas? Now that wasn't Augustus Dorico. It wasn't Rainmaker. His company was single engine propeller driven planes.
So let's hold on, Dana. I have a segment I have all prepared to talk about Texas.
I'm sorry.
So no problem. So let's not jump ahead. But so there's a lot of nefarious stuff that's happening that affects the humans, and one of the things I want to remind people that does affect you is laughter. So we're going to be this next weekend. We'll be in Toronto, Red Bank, New Jersey, Northampton, Massachusetts, and Concord, New Hampshire. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Now, I wanted to show you this, Dane. Now, Nicole Shanahan, I don't know if you're aware of this. She, a bit of a bombshell. She was RFK's running mate. She was his vice presidential running mate when he was running as an independent. And she says the EPA says its plans to release information on geoengineering, which is what we just talked about. They didn't release any of the nothing. So we went and I looked at it. It's all garbage. It's all stuff made you to think nothing's going on. It's just like, oh, look, there's nothing to the Jeffrey Epstein files. Oh, look, there's nothing there. Oh, look, the COVID virus came from a wet lab, a wet market. There's nothing to it. We didn't invent it. So here's what she said. Here's what she said.
Hey, everybody. So EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin announced today that his agency will finally release detailed information on geoengineering. If you followed me for a while, you know this is something I care deeply about. So this feels like the right moment to share. I have been speaking with a whistleblower over the past several weeks who has helped me really understand what's happening in our skies. They have given me information that could shed real light on these programs, who's behind them, where the funding's coming from, and what we can do to stop them. I'll be posting an article on my...
So here is that article. She posted, it's called The Dark Maha. That's kind of funny. Geoengineering, who's behind it and how we stop it. So here's a little bit from her article. It's a long article, a lot of info. She said, I've been in contact with a government whistleblower, an individual who has held high-level security clearances and has spent over a decade consulting directly with major federal agencies. Their experience spans the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, NOAA, and the intelligence community. They told me that despite President Trump's 2020 directive to halt taxpayer-funded climate change initiatives, federal grants for solar radiation management, called SRM, and stratospheric aerosol injection, SAI, and other geoengineering technologies are still being issued. The programs haven't stopped. They've just been rebranded.
Does it sound familiar? It's like gain of function?
Sounds
Obama said stop gain of function, but they just did a lot of gain of function?
Yeah. So I remember in 2014, Obama puts a halt to the gain of function research that Fauci was funding, and Fauci just then went through a CIA cutout called Echo Health Alliance and funded it through there. So this sounds very similar, right? So again, you don't live in a democracy, you live in an oligarchy, and they're going to do what they want because voting isn't going to stop this. Geoengineering is now commonly called climate intervention. SRM is now referred to as solar radiation modification. SAI is now stratospheric aerosol intervention. These semantic shifts aren't scientific. They're strategic. They're designed to obfuscate the truth and shield these programs from Freedom of Information Act or FOIA requests, media scrutiny, and public opposition. Do you concur with that, Dane? Do you see the semantic sleight of hand happening?
I do. Stratospheric aerosol intervention is actually stratospheric aerosol injection. That is the correct term. But yes, that is common for them to do something like this. But the scope and scale of this is above almost anything else. It goes back to the central bankers. These programs have been ongoing for 80 years. We have Senate documents, government documents to back that up.
Well, a question. I thought that it was like 1928 or something is when they started doing like the fog, testing fog by affecting the weather. Yes. Okay. Am I not doing the math right? But it's like 1928, I thought.
But that's not this.
Oh. Okay, I see what you mean.
Solar radiation management, those are defense purposes. The screen curtain, those go back further, even patents before 1920. But SRM operations appear to have first been fully deployed over the polar regions immediately after World War II. So right about 80 years. And again, ramped up since then. And Jimmy, Kurt, you guys have seen every picture we've seen of the polar regions since we were kids. There's always this featureless sky, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we just take for granted that that's what the polar regions look like. Yeah. No, that's how long they've been hampering the system. That's SRM. It's been going on that long. And we know they were beta testing during World War II because we found military footage of the B-17 bombers flying in formation that everybody assumes that's just a giant condensation trail. We found footage of them filming an aircraft above them, all in formation, shutting that trail off like it's been cut with a knife. Did that plane fall out of the sky? Did his engines turn off? No, they were beta testing. So again, we don't know what was what in World War II. They were certainly testing. They certainly deployed after World War II.
So when they say stratospheric aerosol intervention, you say it's injection. What are they injecting into the stratosphere with aerosol?
Highly toxic nanoparticles, aluminum, barium, strontium, manganese polymer fibers, surfactants. And as far as the term, and this is where semantics has come into this equation, we know that because we sued one of the most prominent climate scientists on this issue who's trying to hide it, Dr. Douglas McMartin, works for MIT, Carnegie, Caltech, because he was trying to play the game of semantics saying, well, this isn't happening in the stratosphere, therefore it can't be geoengineering. And again, game of semantics. So the bottom line is the stratosphere over the polar regions, it is happening there because the stratosphere is lower. It can be as low as 23,000 feet. Here, where we're at mid-latitudes, it's being done in the troposphere. So their game of semantics was our definition of geoengineering is stratospheric. This is tropospheric. Therefore, it can't be geoengineering. It's ludicrous. This whole thing is ludicrous. Again, they're spraying us like lab rats, Jimmy.
Yes, and we'll get
never stopped doing it.
And we'll get to the effects of what those nanoparticles have on your body. One of them being Alzheimer's. Yes. The whistleblower provided me with federal grant data showing millions of taxpayer dollars flowing to universities under these new labels. One organization stood out: the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research, or UCAR. What a great name for environmental awareness organization. UCAR. Just think how big brains are in these think tanks. Don't think. This nonprofit consortium of 130 colleges and universities manages the National Center for Atmospheric Research on behalf of the National Science Foundation. So just like how Fauci was able to control the research at all the colleges because he held the purse strings, and he was able to control all the scientists at colleges and universities that do the most important work, it seems like they're doing the same thing with this. 130 colleges and universities managed by, so UCAR has received more than $230 million in direct federal awards, yet much of the documentation about their work is inaccessible. without an internal login. Even so, their public-facing pages and scientific papers reveal clear participation in stratospheric aerosol assessments and other geoengineering research. Here, I just want to show you a video she included in her article. This is a guy who's been advocating that we do this kind of science in the stratosphere, the troposphere, and do the injecting of nanoparticles into our atmosphere. And he was on with Stephen Colbert back when Stephen Colbert didn't suck and he was good. Watch this. Watch this.
You could actually spray sulfuric acid in the stratosphere 20 kilometers over our head and use that to stop the planet warming up in a kind of ugly tech fix.
You can spray something into the atmosphere to change. Okay,
spray pollution into the atmosphere.
So this is a guy named David Keith. He's the geoengineer and owner of carbonengineering.com, and he wrote this book, and that's why he was on Stephen Colbert. He's been on lots of shows. This is just one of them, and he just says it right out loud. We're going to spray sulfuric acid into the atmosphere, and this kind of blows Stephen Colbert's mind back when he was able to have his mind blown by crazy stuff like this.
He's never brought it up again.
And he's never brought it up again, no.
It's working.
How do you do this?
You'd start with a fleet of modified business jets and say 20,000 tons of sulfuric acid into the stratosphere every year. And each year you have to put a little more. And this doesn't, in the long run, mean that you can forget about cutting emissions. We will need to rein in emissions.
We'll get to it eventually. But in the meantime, we're shrouding the Earth in sulfuric acid.
So people are terrified about talking about this because they're scared that it will prevent us cutting emissions.
Right, and also that it's sulfuric acid.
We put 50 million tons of sulfuric acid in the air now as pollution, and it kills 1 million people a year worldwide.
Okay, but it'll be better if we put more in.
We're talking about 1% of that.
1% more,
cowbell.
we're just killing 10,000 more people.
You can do math.
What happens to the sulfuric acid after it's sprayed? Does it just stay up there?
No, it rains down, but it's a tiny addition to what we're already doing.
Is there any possible way this could come back to bite us in the end?
It actually turns out to be an old idea. This was known since President Johnson.
You ever look at those planes up there? They have contrails behind them. Maybe all those planes with the contrails, maybe they're actually spraying chemicals into the atmosphere right now, and Uncle Sam isn't telling us.
Seems extremely unlikely.
The fact that the United States is not telling something to its citizens, that seems extremely likely to me. Read the newspaper.
Boy, whatever happened to that Stephen Colbert, huh, Kurt? That was amazing.
He got sprayed with chemicals from a modified business plane.
I think he did get. So there he is admitting that that's what they're doing, and he's trying to make it like it's not a big deal.
It's just the plot of Highlander 2. I know nobody saw it because it sucked, but the plot of Highlander 2 was that they blotted out the sun by mistake doing that. I cannot believe that plot is first Top Gun in Iran and now Highlander 2.
There's an important additional bit of information regarding what you just showed, Jimmy, and that's Dr. David Keith, the world's most recognized geoengineer. At an international geoengineering conference, I cornered Dr. Keith. I was one of only 3 questions they allowed from about 100 reporters and researchers, and he gave a 3.5-hour symposium of putting tens of millions of tons of not sulfuric acid, but aluminum, nanoparticle aluminum. They've completely changed their narrative because they realize now the population understands aluminum is toxic to all life forms, period. So now he's changed the entire narrative, and that confrontation is on film on the record in our documentary, The Dimming, 26 million views on YouTube and counting. So Dr. Keith, after 3.5 hours symposium of pushing for tens of millions of tons of aluminum nanoparticles to be dumped in the atmosphere, my question to Dr. Keith was this: have you done any toxicological studies whatsoever, human or environmental? His answer, after looking like a deer in the headlights, no, we haven't. Could terrible things happen tomorrow? We don't know. From a scientist, really? And now they've changed the entire narrative.
I'll bet they have studied and they don't care. It's not. Yeah,
well,
they want it.
Well, here is back to Nicole Shanahan's article. She says a 2020 review in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found that chronic aluminum exposure correlates with Alzheimer's type dementia, pointing out risks of atmospheric dispersants leaching into the human body. Other peer-reviewed research has associated aerosol pollution with rising asthma rates, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, that's COPD, and even endocrine disruption. Yes, these risks go largely unaddressed. The EPA has not conducted any long-term toxicological studies or atmospheric dispersants used in climate intervention. Neither have state health departments, because if you acknowledge the risk, you must also accept liability. So they haven't done, just like you said when you confronted that guy, and that's why they're doing this semantic sleight of hand where they're not saying it's aluminum anymore, because people know that aluminum causes Alzheimer's. And so that's why they switched it. And I wish I had that video to show right now. That would be amazing. But let me just go show you one last slide from Nicole Shanahan's article. She said, so they had these hearings about this, about geoengineering in Congress. And you talked about the treaty they had to stop everybody doing this geoengineering. It was all about military. This is all about applications militarily. And so Senator Clinton Anderson of New Mexico recalled a chilling warning from Dr. John Van Neumann, a member of the Atomic Energy Commission and a pioneer in modern computing. According to Anderson, Van Neumann had warned that, quote, weather manipulation, not the ICBM, meaning missiles, would be the ultimate weapon for the protection of the free world. Other expert witnesses echoed the concern. Dr. Irving Langmuir, a Nobel Prize-winning chemist and early cloud seeding researcher, was quoted as saying that the real long-term threat wasn't from missiles, but from weather control. In his own words, one could control the march of armies and everything using weather modification. Wow. So this is really started as it's a military operation. This is like how DARPA had their hands in the COVID virus. This is very much similar, correct?
It is. In regard to aluminum, the inhaled aluminum nanoparticles are far more detrimental than ingested particles. We have the world's top experts on aluminum toxicity, Dr. Exley, stating without aluminum in the equation, there would be no Alzheimer's in the normal human lifespan of 100 years. And Jimmy and Kurt, the bees are collapsing. You heard that, right, Jimmy?
Yes.
So we saw this year the biggest collapse of all, 70%. That sounds bad. It is bad. But what's the real picture? That was a 70% collapse of the 20% that remained. We're down to single digits on the pollinators. We know what Einstein said: once we lose the pollinators, we're not going to be here long. And I'll end with this. We have peer-reviewed science study. If your followers search bees aluminum, peer-reviewed science study proving that bees are dying of symptoms that resemble Alzheimer's and dementia in a human being from massive aluminum exposure. This is 1,000 miles away from industry or anything else. It's clearly coming from the sky. And they can't even find their way back to the hive. How long till we can't find our way back to our home if we keep sucking this stuff up with every breath we take?
So you say there's a connection between this kind of geoengineering and the collapse of the bee population?
Oh, it's completely connected. Absolutely. We have lab tests to back that up. We've done about 500 lab tests working with UC Minnesota. That's a large ag group. There's so much aluminum in our rain, it's completely toxic. So much aluminum, it's changing soil pH values. And again, bioavailable aluminum does not exist naturally in the environment. It's always bonded to other elements unless it's been mined, refined, and dispersed. It's exactly what Dr. David Keith was initially pushing before he realized that wasn't going to fly. And it's listed in climate engineering patents. Again, this is absolutely one of the elements that's being dispersed, and we're breathing it in. Every person we've tested, Jimmy, hair, blood, urine is packed with aluminum now.
And so, why are they doing it? What is it? The interest, like what? So
Jimmy, you know how I keep bringing up over and over how everyone can't remember anything for more than a month or a week now?
Yeah.
I wonder if it has anything to do with the aluminum in the rain.
Yeah, but people, Bill Gates has to breathe the same air that I have to breathe, right? So, Jeff Bezos has to breathe the same air. The Klaus Schwab has to breathe the same air. So wouldn't those people who are responsible for doing this and have been responsible for doing it for 80 years, wouldn't they be afraid of this? What do you say to this, Dane?
First, let me back up to the stated purpose of these operations. The covert label, solar radiation management, light scattering particles in the atmosphere, slow down some of the sun's incoming thermal energy with no consideration of the consequences. We know it's being used as a covert weapon of war. Yes, crown jewel weapon of military industrial complex. And we know the entire system has been designed, the official air quality system, not to show this mountain of contamination. All official air quality testing is PM10, only occasionally PM2.5. These particles are inconceivably smaller. Again, you can fit 100,000 nanoparticles across the width of a single human hair. So with the current air testing system, Jimmy and Kurt, it would be like trying to catch a minnow in a tuna net. It doesn't show up at all. And in regard to the consequences for the controllers, those who print the money, that's ultimately who's behind all this. Elected officials are simply puppets in the play. What else have they done to themselves already? Are we dealing with sanity? Answer is no. So we have 2,400 nuclear bombs detonated all over the world. That contaminated everything. You guys might remember these terms: Project Starfish Prime and Project Fishbowl. That's the detonation of hydrogen bombs in the magnetosphere that they thought could collapse the entire atmosphere. Did that stop them? No. So again, we know from psychoanalysis, and this is right from the manual, there's a common thread with those in power, and it's this. It's like a headless, heartless, soulless cancer. But the exact quote from the manual is that they have a near total lack of comprehension as to the consequences of their actions, even to themselves.
But you can see it. You can see it. I mean, look, all the other stuff we cover every day on the show is so disconnected from any form of human empathy or understand. Like, they can't get their head around the evil they're doing right now.
Okay, now I'm going to throw it to Steph for a minute, and I'm going to set up. I would love to get your comments on what happened in Texas. So we're going to talk about that next. Over to Steph.
Let me ask you: do you want to go to Rumble now, or do you want to do one more story?
Come to me for a second. But of course, if you really do care about the weather is supposed to be great next weekend when I'm in Toronto, Red Bank, New Jersey, Northampton, Massachusetts, and Concord, New Hampshire. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. See you there.
It's a show you won't forget.
That's the show you won't forget. And you see all my new jokes about Israel and Gaza. There's lots of those. All my new jokes about grab 'em by the pussy and all that stuff. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. But right now, we will jump to Rumble. Let's go ahead and jump. Hey, guess who's coming up after our great guest, Dane Wigington? Kathy O'Brien's going to be here. And if you don't know her story about MK Ultra, wait till you hear it. It's
I bet she knows about this too, if you ask.
Yeah. All right. So let's, Dane, can you hang with us as we switch over to
Absolutely.
Rumble?
And for the record, I don't laugh much. You guys are good. You guys are good medicine. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I just want to let you know that this guy here, right? So what's that guy's name again?
David Keith, Dr. David Keith.
So Dr. David Keith. So he doesn't look like he was popular in high school, and he got his ass. He looks like he probably got his ass kicked every single day in school. Just instinctively, I know that, and so this is his revenge. This is his revenge on the same planet that houses Tina Timberman, that girl who rejected him in junior high school. So this is how he gets back. Anyway, I just wanted to let everybody know that. Okay, all right, let's go over to Rumble, and we'll be right back with what actually happened in Texas.
Yes.
Hi, welcome back. Thanks for making the trip over to Rumble. We're here with Dane Wigington, who knows everything about cloud seeding and geoengineering. Here, and Americans comedian Kurt Mexican is also with us with his funny colored beard.
Is it?
Yeah, because it looks like see the white part over there. It doesn't show up well on camera, so it just looks like you have this little wisp.
Oh, it might be some aluminum left over in my beard from the rain this morning.
Okay.
I like to go out and inhale the aluminum when it rains.
To get that good. Hey, let me ask you real quick, Dane, can you explain, sometimes when it rains, sometimes the water that comes out of the gutter, it's like, am I imagining it? It's bubbly.
No, you're not imagining it. It's from surfactants. Surfactants are a part of the mix. Surfactants are what makes soap soap. It affects the molecular tension in water molecules. They use surfactants to keep the particles from coagulating together before they descend, because they descend faster. Than there's definitely surfactants in the mix. If you guys want to see the extreme of that, you can see ocean foaming events in some regions where they've overdone the mix. Ocean foam 10 feet thick, cars disappearing in it. That's surfactants being dumped over the sea surface as well. Surfactants are part of the mix. Foaming rain is the result.
And Dane, we're never going to see this on the news, right? They're never going to mention surfactants on the news, even though I'm sure there's a reporter somewhere who knows what you know.
Maybe, but they know how long your leash is also. And we have an illegal federal gag order on National Weather Service and NOAA. Why would you gag the weathermen if you didn't have something very, very big to hide?
Wait, there's a gag order on weathermen?
On NOAA?
What?
Do they even understand these names? What sounds like?
Right.
It's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And I had a NOAA scientist state to my face at a marine lab on the West Coast in private, we all know this is going on. We have no First Amendment protection. We don't know what to do. If we could provide enough public awareness so they can come out of the shadows, there's going to be a stampede.
And so how close do you think we are to creating enough public awareness to create a stampede?
Well, for Lee Zeldin to make the ridiculously acted scenario he just pumped out. And I mean, if you look at the threads, we posted that at our site, and virtually every activist out there saw right through that lame smokescreen he put up. And again, they're just, it's unraveling, and they're clearly not able to stop that, however desperate they become. But we're close to some breaks in the dam that they're not going to be able to plug, Jimmy.
Well, it's just amazing to me, the timing of all this, because Trump administration from top to bottom, nobody believes what they're saying about the Epstein files or the Epstein case or that Epstein killed. They even went so far as to say that Epstein wasn't blackmailing anybody. That's how far they pushed this.
Yeah. He just loved the game for his own.
Yeah, and as Sagar and Jetty pointed out, that lie isn't for us. It's for the people who are actually involved in doing all this, and that they want to let them know that how far the government will go to protect the people in the program.
You can stop trying to kill me now, guys, because see, I'm going to cover for you forever. You don't have to keep trying to kill me all the time.
Yes.
That's how I take it.
Yes.
It is. In regard to the geoengineering issue, did you guys happen to see on the Dr. Phil show, he was interviewing Robert Kennedy, a member of the audience?
Yes.
Stood up. You saw that?
Yes, we saw. So tell people what happened. A member of the audience got up, asked him about chemtrails, and he responded with a non-answer.
She asked him about chemtrails. She mentioned my name specifically, at which point they cut her off. He looked like a deer in the headlights. And then he went on to say, well, it's not my agency, it's DARPA, as if that's a revelation. DARPA's involved with everything bad. And then he went on to regurgitate the official denial by stating it's just jet fuel, AKA just jet exhaust, nothing to see here. And Robert knows better. Robert interviewed me for an hour in 2024. He was leaned on by some important people to do so. They called me as well to make sure that interview would happen. But he knew long before that. In 2012, Woody Harrelson had Robert at his house in Hawaii and gave him the full rundown on this issue. He never said a word. I knew about that right when it happened. He never said a word and hasn't said anything since he's been in office other than the Dr. Phil blurb. So again, they're not about to admit to this. They've joined the club. Those are in the club. How many people have we seen now in the club? What are they doing? Epstein, everything. And I mean, for anybody to expect the club to do anything that matters is a mistake.
Well, also, I kept bringing this up with the nuke thing because there's a weird conspiracy theory that nuclear weapons don't exist going around now, which clearly is a convenient time to make up some nonsense like that. But what's the problem with nukes? You can't use them because everybody knows you used them, right? So if you ever get any worse weapons than nukes, like say weather weapons or weapons that are straight out of like the four horsemen of the apocalypse as weapons, you can't tell anybody because they look like they're natural. So you can never reveal you have them if you'd like to keep using them. And I bet they've been using them quite a long time. And I bet they'll go to great lengths like UFO bullshit and I'd pick your bullshit to cover up that we're way past nukes now.
You guys have seen what President Johnson stated in 1962, right? Ranting like a lunatic. You guys must have seen that. It's at the start of the weekly Geoengineering Watch commercial-free news update every week, Global Alert News. The first 30 seconds, President Lyndon Johnson, 1962, on film, on the record, raving like a lunatic, stating we had the power to control the world's cloud layer then, and, quote, he who controls the weather controls the world.
I mean, I've never heard that. That's
it's on film. It's on film.
It's a bit of a smoking gun.
You think? Yeah, I agree. And now we have Lee Zeldin and saying we don't have this technology and let's pretend it's someday. This whole thing is a circus of stupidity.
As soon as I saw the Colonel Prouty thing about oil, Pasta, when he was filling for Jimmy, told me the thing about oil. And I was like, come on. And then I remember what they did with diamonds, making them fake scarce to control it and how that's a military thing, your energy. So, of course, they're doing all kinds of lies about it. And then I see Colonel Prouty explaining, and he's there when they first made these decisions to lie about that. And as soon as you hear him tell the story, you know it's true. As soon as you hear the guy who was sitting there, it sounds like someone who knew L. Ron Hubbard when he said he wanted to start a religion. Is that same kind of like ring of truth? And people have said this stuff out loud. None of it is classified. You could just piece it together, but all the training everybody gets is to never do that.
You know what else is not classified, Kurt? My tour schedule, which next week I'll be in Toronto, Red Bank, New Jersey, Northampton, Massachusetts, and Concord, New Hampshire. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Now, I want to talk about what happened in Texas. There was that huge flood. It wiped out that camp and lots of people. So here, plot thickens. Rainmaker confirmed it flew a 20. So there's a company called Rainmaker, I guess. And it confirmed it flew a 20-minute cloud seeding mission on July 2nd over Karnes County, located southeast of the Texas flood zone. Texas cloud seeding CEO, funded by Peter Thiel, connected to Palantir. No way. Meet Augustus Dorico. He's a 25-year-old tech bro. 25-year-old. First of all, never trust a guy who's 25 named Augustus. That's my first rule of thumb.
Or 25. If you're a government agency or a girl, don't trust a guy that's 25 or younger is my advice.
And so he's a Thiel fellow, Peter Thiel fellow, who founded the weather modification startup called Rainmaker. Yeah. According to publicly available info, Dorico's company was reportedly cloud seeding over parts of Texas just 2 days before the historic flood hit those same regions. He received $100,000 through Peter Thiel's fellowship, the same Thiel who co-founded Palantir, the surveillance and defense tech giant tracking everything from troop movements to civilian behavior. Let that sink in. And as we all know, Palantir is very important because they are the secret police organization which protects trillionaire pedophiles from the rest of humanity. And without them, humanity wouldn't have any real problems, and we can't have that. So why is Palantir connected? Why is a Palantir-connected billionaire funding private weather experiments in Texas? Why is a 25-year-old with no public oversight allowed to modify the sky? They called it stewarding the natural world. Texas got biblical flooding instead. This isn't a theory. It's documented, privately funded, and totally unregulated. No vote, no consent, no accountability, just Thiel money, weather manipulation, and a flooded state left asking questions. And even Grok knows the truth. Grok, yes, Augustus Dorico founded Rainmaker, funded by Peter Thiel. They seeded clouds in Texas on July 2nd, 2 days before the deadly. He also claims he seeded clouds. Okay, so just to let you...
Also, it's a 25-year-old young boy. Why would he be in a fellowship with Peter Thiel? I wonder. I wonder why Peter Thiel takes interest in these really young fellas and gives them stuff. Like how Mel Gibson would give his mistress a recording studio. He gives these kids dominion over the earth.
And just, you conspiracy nuts, not everything evil is connected to Peter Thiel and Palantir, just 97% of everything. So Rainmaker CEO, this is from Dallas Express, Rainmaker CEO, he's 25, to speak publicly amid cloud seeding scrutiny over Texas floods. And here he is. So he was asked directly if his cloud seeding had anything to do with the flood. I wonder what he's going to say. Let's listen.
The question is whether or not Rainmaker, cloud seeding on July 2nd, contributed to storms that occurred on July 4th. Did it enhance? Did it intensify what we saw some 36 to 48 hours later?
Unequivocally, our cloud seeding operations on July 2nd did not impact the flooding that occurred later. And that said, my heart and prayers are still with all the people of Texas and all the families that have been affected. It was a tragedy. But in cloud seeding on the 2nd, One, we are regulated by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, and we have what are called suspension criteria, where if there are National Weather Service flash flood warnings or severe storm warnings, then we cannot operate in those areas per the restrictions and regulations we have. Our meteorologists actually proactively suspended operations a day before the National Weather Service issued a flash flood warning. So we were ahead of the curve.
So I have two things I want to say before I throw it to you, Dane. The first thing is nothing says smart like a mullet. Am I right? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, Palmer Luckey has the same thing. The jerk off with the drones. Remember all the drones?
Yeah.
That's Palmer Luckey, another Peter Thiel pal with a weird Lord of the Rings fellowship name, right?
He's
This guy's dressed like Peter Thiel's pool boy, isn't he?
He's like a tech genius for dumb guys. That's what this guy. And
they're smart. They're just Twinkies.
And the numbers. The second thing I want to say. So the guy being accused of a crime is being asked if he committed the crime and if the crime had any negative effect. That's like asking your dog who shit on the carpet. Am I kidding? You're never going to hear from the dog, and you're too stupid to read the reason. You can't ask this guy that, but they did. So there he is. Dane, now you are the premier expert on all of this. Why is a private company allowed to do cloud seeding, A? And B, he seems like guilty. What do you say to all this?
He's playing the part of a red herring in this equation. There is no question, scientifically speaking, whatever he did or didn't do, whatever his planes did or didn't do, it was not what caused what happened in Texas. And to further back that up, aside from the time gap between whatever he did and the meager amount of material that their aircraft would have dropped, perhaps 5 to 10 pounds at most, what kept that moisture, this is critically important, what kept that moisture precipitating in one spot was frequency transmission manipulation from the NEXRAD transmitter network. We recorded it. We recorded the same thing with Hurricane Harvey. And that's how they knew Harvey would end up where it did 7 days in advance and stay there for 3 days and dump 50 inches of rain, because the frequency transmissions, they have a repelling effect against the air mass and the moisture accumulation. And when you activate those transmissions all around that moisture accumulation, you hold it stationary and it precipitates out in one spot. And that's exactly what happened in Texas. And that definitely has nothing to do with whatever he did, but he's playing the part of mass distraction. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the involvement with Thiel. Again, that is definitely what he has done in a big way, showing up in every major media, everything, taking the focus off of the elephant in the equation, climate intervention operations.
So he's like the Oswald.
Yep. Thank you.
So it's like what Oswald was to the JFK shooting. That's what this guy is to this cloud seeding and geoengineering. And you say, so you are saying that the flood in Texas, according to some data that you have, was artificially engineered. Is that what you're saying?
There's nothing natural about that event. Nothing. When we see the frequency transmission interaction, holding that storm moisture in place, forcing it to precipitate out in one location, there's nothing natural about that. These are patented processes. It's not theory. It's not conjecture. It's not hypothesis. Nothing natural about that event. And let's look at Hurricane Helene. We recorded that as well. That's a very damning recording. In real time, we recorded those transmissions to the NEXRAD network, steering that storm where it ended up and holding it there to precipitate everything out. And we're dealing with those legislators too, Jimmy and Kurt, in the Carolinas. One particularly honorable individual there, Representative Lee Gelreith, is so on board with fighting this issue that he's paying for billboards to expose this issue out of his own pocket. He made a very powerful statement in a 2-minute video, which we have posted on our site. He's former military, stating these programs hold our future in the balance. We have to stop them or we're done. On film, on the record. So we do have some very honorable representatives out there. Lee Gelreith is one.
And so what? So tell me, what kind of instrument do you have that, and what is it measuring? And that's how you know that they're keeping this weather system in place to dump.
It's not our instrument. It's an actual data loop for the NEXRAD network that we still have access to, which I'm frankly surprised. I hope it doesn't now go away that I'm talking about it, but it's almost as if this cabal wants to leave a trail of breadcrumbs so that they feel justified about doing whatever they want because the public was told. But we have access to the actual data loops for that network that show the energizing of those facilities and they're interacting with the storm. So again, we have hard data. There's no blank spots here.
Yeah,
None.
well, you're not going to look. I mean, not you, but like it's like the iTunes agreement. These people are very legalistic. It's always like a lawyer going into this office that doesn't do law, but they learn how to worm around the law because that's the job basically, to do this evil crap. So that is the thing. Exactly what you said. They go, oh, well, you were warned. It's like in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they're going to pave over the earth because you didn't go to the notice board that we're paving over the earth. That's not our fault. That's the mentality, and it's legalistic. I don't know. I don't understand why exactly. It has to do with the cult, but it is like that.
I would, if your followers search geoengineeringwatch.org hurricanes, look at Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Ian, Hurricane Helene. I mean, what we've captured in real time as it happened is inarguable. Like with Harvey, for example, you can see the energizing of the the transmission facilities. You can see how that holds the storm in place. It doesn't migrate past that. It doesn't break up. That's what happened in Texas, just precipitated out of one spot. So again, these are very sophisticated networks, nothing to do with the 25-year-old mullet man and his rainmaking company. Bottom line is this is top tier defense industry materials.
Oh, also, here's another great thing with leaving the trail out for you to pick up. They can find out who can pick up the trail. It's like dyeing the water to see the source of potential problems.
Yeah, they can, but there's no place to hide. You know, again, they could do anything to you, me, any of us, anytime they want. And I would argue that there's hiding in our cabins on the Titanic won't save us. We all need to be on deck doing our best to sound the alarm. So I'm grateful to you two both for that.
So, this thing. So what is the name of the? You say it very fast. What is the name of the network thing that you can get the data from? What is that called?
NexRad.
NexRad.
Exactly as it sounds. NexRad. And they will claim, just as they do with the HARP facility, just benign radar, nothing to see here. Yeah, sure, we're using 750,000 watts of power, but never mind that. This is just harmless radar. It's mind-numbing the way they try to skirt over.
Harmless radar? A microwave oven is a radar they put in a box.
Yes.
The guy discovered that, melted a candy bar cooked in his pocket by the radar dish, and that's how you learn it's a direct energy weapon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And about the IQs dropping, just so we fill in that blank, because we are all getting dumber by the day. And how do you know when you're getting dumber by the day? IQs have dropped, according to peer-reviewed published study now in the US in the last generation, 6 to 9 points. That's big. 6 to 9 point IQ drop across the board in the US last generation.
So I've been turning gayer myself as well. I don't know if that.
Those microplastics, Kurt, they're supposed to have that effect. We all have those in us now too.
I thought the vaccine may be.
By the way, here's another point. Okay, we all on the microplastics that are showing up in everyone. We have peer-reviewed study to back that up. Tremendous amounts, especially in the brain, all other organs as well. We know plastic is decomposing in the environment, yes, but we know polymer fibers are a key component in climate engineering. So the scientists we work with at Rensselaer Polytechnic in New York and the samples we gathered at altitude from a NOAA flying lab and a private jet platform, we found particles that they identified. They're the top people in the world as manufactured particles. That's not simple decomposition. That's climate engineering, and this is showing up in all of us. We're talking about 40 to 60 million tons a year. That's a lot. So again, if we can't breathe without sucking this stuff up, is that not an immediate fight for life?
Yeah, my friend Nathan Reynolds said people that are worried about transhumanism. Well, I hate to tell you, most of us aren't actually like the original humans anymore, just based on the crap they've put in us over the years, over generations. So if you want to get real technical about it.
So Dane, let me ask you really quickly. We have another guest that's waiting. I have two questions for you. Do you think? So there seems to obviously be. There's a bunch of billionaires who fly around the world on private jets. Remember, one private jet plane burns more carbon than my car does in my lifetime. They all have these 400, 500 yachts that are bigger than football fields. Some of them twice as big. Yachts that are so big they come with support yachts. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. And those are the people who are screaming about climate change, and they want us living in storage containers, living in 15-minute cities, eating the bugs that hit us on the face. So these people obviously have an agenda to make everybody afraid of climate change so that they can control them. That's obvious that that's what's happening. Now, whether you believe climate change, carbon-based climate change is real or not, it certainly has created a greening of the planet. There's more plants. You need carbon.
Who would have thought that trees breathe carbon dioxide, Jimmy? It was a fact I learned in school, yet somehow forgot for 20 straight years.
Isn't that something?
And if someone said it to me, I go, shut up, idiot.
So do you think that here's just a theory that some of that these weather modification events, like you keep mentioning those hurricanes, what just happened in Texas, do you think it's to make people more afraid of climate change so they can institute their plans to control us through climate change legislation and climate change rules? What do you think to that, Dane?
I think there's much more to it. And that, again, when we saw, for example, the blizzards, you guys remember that in New Orleans this winter, blizzard in New Orleans, blizzard in Florida, blizzard on the Gulf Coast. What weren't we told at the same time in the polar regions? January 21st, interesting date for those blizzards, by the way. It was above freezing and raining in the polar regions, Alaska, Greenland, Iceland, Siberia. So we have a psychological aspect that as these programs do more damage, that convinces people that the damage really isn't done. If it's snowing in New Orleans, how could there possibly be damage to the planet, right? That's one aspect. Two, if we look at, for example, Hurricane Helene and the lithium mines there that the public was not willing to vacate, they certainly likely are now. Was that connected? Was that another layer to this equation? There are likely many layers. Let's look at Dubai. You guys may remember that Dubai got hit with 2 years worth of rain in 6 hours. And that coincidentally, it happened about 4 days after they said they were going to ditch the dollar. So again, is this a shot across the bow of any country that doesn't toe the line? They're wiped out with some sort of cataclysm or populations that won't move off the patch of dirt that contains the lithium. Interestingly enough, many people don't know this, but Iran has discovered the second largest lithium deposit, they believe, globally.
Yeah.
That's interesting. How does that fit into the equation of them recently receiving what they got? So again, there's so much more to these equations. And with the weather warfare, covert way of clearing the land, or in the case of Lahaina, for example, Pacific Palisades, lots of variables here, Jimmy, lots of agendas, lots of objectives. But on the current course, if they continue to do this kind of damage, nobody's going to be here for long, and that includes them.
Okay. Dane, one more thing. I hate to keep bothering, but is there anything people can do? So you have these nanoparticles of aluminum, which is toxic, right? Everybody knows aluminum's toxic. They're finally taking, RFK is getting it out of vaccines. Is there anything we can do to kind of help our body leach that and get rid of it naturally?
Yes, chelation is imperative. And let's make the equation, forgive me, a bit darker still. We all have aluminum in us now. We all have mercury in us now from various sources, amalgam fillings, coal-fired power plants, vaccines. So when you combine those two already highly toxic metals, you have synergistic toxicity, which means the overall toxicity can go up, in the case of those two metals, as much as 10,000%, 100 times worse. It's a wonder any of us are walking and talking at this point. Chelation is essential, must be done carefully. If you chelate too quickly and too aggressively, you can do more harm than good, but it's essential to do every day to keep these metals operating through our systems and purging out of our systems. Essential.
What is chelation?
Various supplements and elements can free up these metals because they tend to adhere to cell receptors like a plaque. If you can free them up, and with the right chelation, migrate them out of your system, not just free them up so they can migrate somewhere else and readhere. Again, chelation is something that needs to be taken seriously with proper guidance, but it is essential. And even simple elements like vitamin C and calcium, those are both chelators. If your body doesn't have enough calcium, it tends to substitute aluminum in its stead. That's definitely not what we want. So again, talking to a nutritionalist, there's supplements that are good for you anyway that help you chelate these metals out of your system. That's essential while we're fighting this battle.
Is there any place on the web where people can go to read about what kind of chelation they should be doing?
Certainly, heavy metal chelation is a big subject. There's many different approaches and strategies with that. It needs to be an individual approach depending on your own physiology, but it is absolutely imperative. If you want to keep firing on all neurons for as long as possible, that is absolutely imperative. You need to keep the buildup from happening.
Okay. All right. Dane Wigington, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for your expertise. Thanks for your courage and telling the truth about all this. It affects everybody. I appreciate everybody should check out geoengineeringwatch.org, geoengineeringwatch.org. And you should also watch the documentary The Dimming, which is available on YouTube, amazingly. And it has over 26 million views as of right now. So go check that out. Dane Wigington, thank you very much for coming on again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks to you. Thanks to Kurt. Thanks for your attention to the skies. And thanks for the best laughs I've had for a long time, guys. Very grateful.
Okay. You're welcome. All right. Over to Steph.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back with our special guest, Kathy O'Brien. See you.